What's your favorite movie?
Cardi B.
Kamala Harris broke the state record for incarcerating black males.
Well, let's not buy into the myth that black folks don't love sitting in jail.
Weren't your parents civil rights activists?
I don't know, but let me tell you what I will do when I am elected president of the United States. I will kill brown babies, put people in jail, and legalize drunk driving. How about that?
Why?
Shut up.
What's your favorite?
Things are going to start happening to me now.
You've done all the reading. You're a scholar, you're a professor. You've done all the reading. You've done the intellectual heavy lifting.
More or less, eat shit and die.
You wouldn't know a fact if it begged you all night long.
Want to give the wrong impression because I am very high.
Right up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash.
Yeah. Care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
We're live. Kinda. With some Eminem. I hate Eminem. Why am I playing it? I don't know. It was on the soundboard. So I hope we're out there with all the places. We should be on Rumble too. I had to reset this thing a few times this time. Welcome everybody. It's Tyler Yonke, LPR. It's a Friday afternoon. We're getting things going. I hope you're going to be joining us up here. Let's take a look at some of the shows we've done recently, right? I did a show about Dave Smith and Andrew Wilson. Is that his name? I don't know, care. On family law, and they didn't understand it. And Dave, if you ever want me to come on your show, just call me up. Let's do it. Okay. Fox and Sons, if you want coffee, go to foxandsons.com, put the code in review, and you'll get 18 to 15% off of orders of 25 or more, $25 or more. Here's the show we're doing today. But first, I thought I'd recap a little thing. I talked about it yesterday, or last week. We had on Lee Enfield, great show about the assassination stuff. But I did Not a Podcast, which he was part of. It was episode 23. Go back in my archives and you can see me break that down with a little bit of a beard there. I was on with Andrew of Legal Mindset. Broke records for me, 15,000 some views up there. Go check that out. He did a crossover on my show. And then, like I said, with Dave. And there you go. There's Lee Enfield, his place, N Block Press. I hope you check that out. A few people are in the comments. Come on in. Also, this is very important to know, which is this week, let me see if are we live on Rumble? Maybe this didn't happen. Maybe it's just, no, I think we are there. Okay. So I did a show on Monday and not many people have watched it. You guys need to go out there and check it out. Okay. And what was it about? It was about trading, short trading, DJT, Donald Trump stock, and kind of my background with that. Now, there's some confusion with all of it, and I implore you to go watch it. It's pretty quick, but I've got a lot of trading knowledge and experience. The one aspect I didn't take into account is it may, if you're watching this and you're interested, is it may have been an exercising of the option. It's in the money, or they want to exercise this and they do so, and maybe that was the thing I was missing. If you know, go check that out. If you don't, doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's get going on today's show. I thought we'd do a few things, which is I'm going to talk about a little bit about Robert Barnes' situation, because he loves to be up in the news and all up in that. And then I was going to break down this Tennessee case. Andy sent it to me. He's really involved. He lives in Tennessee. He really is excited about having it. They had a ban on drag shows, inappropriate for minors, and this Friends of George or some group, then they basically had a lawsuit against it about it, and it was overturned, or there was a stay on the law, and then it was appealed, and on appeal it got overturned. So they're like, this law is valid. So I thought we'd break down that because that's somewhat important. And it was they did it on standing, the appeal on standing and constitutional issues, and it seems like it flew, and it was pretty good. Now I read through it and it was like, okay, it's 40 some pages, but only 16 pages is then there's the dissent, and no one gives a shit about the dissent. You lost, so I don't really care. What I have to do, though, to see this Robert Barnes thing, is there any other ones I want to do? Maybe we'll just do Kamala Harris real quick here, which is, she's now, looks like she's going to be the person in charge of the world, right? So here's kind of the news is taking us to task about her, and it's just
quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. She was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
There you go. What I find really interesting about that, and then there was another clip I had, or that there was going out there, same idea. And the problem with that one is then at the end they're like, but crossings are way down. It's like, okay, so which is it? You either want to give her credit or so you want it both ways. You don't want her to be called this border czar, even though you called her a border czar, because the reason you don't want her to be tagged as a border czar is because the border's been atrocious. And then they go on to say, but the border's actually fine. Maybe I should find that one. I had tagged it here. It's kind of the same thing. Let's easy there. It's playing in my background. But this is what's interesting. If you're not a left winger, which I'm not, it can be difficult just living with the news, right? You wonder why people are giving the finger to the news and they hate them so much, because it's stuff like this that the news does. No, Loads of Honeys in here says, yo, where everybody at? Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, it's probably my fault. Just letting you know, I set this to go today at 3:15. And then I had to rush back. I had to go to the courthouse and file some stuff and get some things. And I came home and I was like, I'm going to just set it for 6:15. Let's just do 6:15. Then my wife's Pacific, by the way. And then my wife's like, hey, these friends, they want to do this. And I'm like, okay, fine. So it's at 6. So I post that back. So yes, did you post on Twitter? Yes, it is also on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Rumble. We're on, and so look at this. We actually have stuff. Let's Tyler, let's try this here. Let's try to screen share the chat. Where is it? Can I find it? There we go. There's the chat. Screen share the chat here. Northside CA 707 says, if they had speakers playing her laughing along the border, many illegals would turn back. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's play one more clip here, but I just wanted to kind of talk about, understanding when the news gaslights you like this so bad, then you have to, you're taking the Michael Malice attitude where it's like, they're the enemy of the people. Imagine if any kind of news outlet did this for Donald Trump, as an example. They would never do this. And I wouldn't want them to, but look
she was never actually border czar.
Border czar, which was not something that was formally conveyed upon her. She's been labeled incorrectly by some members of the right as the border czar. Republicans named her the border czar.
Republicans have always exaggerated what her job was at the border.
Republicans, again, have labeled her the border czar.
But that's not exactly what President Biden asked her to do.
She was never put in charge of the border.
That wasn't actually her task.
Not to secure it, but to address the underlying roots of migration.
She was charged with leading the administration's efforts to address the root causes of migration.
The root causes of migration to the U.S.
The root causes.
Root causes.
Root causes. The root causes.
Root causes
of immigration.
We also want to point out that right now apprehension.
I'm sorry, I have to go back here. Look at this clown that they just showed. Literally a clown. Let's see if we
root causes.
Root causes
of immigration.
There you go. Look at and look at those lips. If you're only on audio, yikes. That's all I can say. Fuchsia?
We also want to point out that right now, apprehension numbers continue to decrease in our country, especially over the last few months.
And I just want to note that border crossings have been going down.
And illegal.
Okay, so if they're going to then say, then why can't you be the border czar? If these numbers now that you want to tout and say that they're amazing, then why do you not want her to get credit as the border czar? Or as Not Ron says here, she was never the border czar, she was border Kaiser. Yeah.
Border crossings are lower right now.
Migrant crossings continue to drop.
Border crossings are way down.
Border crossings are down.
Okay, I don't know why I keep getting this newsbuster guy going in there. There you go. So that to me is very interesting, right? It's damn this camera stuff. So they're gaslighting you in a sense. Imagine just your party, maybe you're a lefty, and having your side so inundated of corrections all the time on the news, right? Instead of, really what the journalists should be doing is poking the bear a little bit, like let's get to the bottom of this. But it's all running cover, and it's really gross, and kind of somewhat makes me proud for not being part of that system. But yeah, Jose's here. Thank you. Most of the media gaslights. Yeah, they do. Left and right. Absolutely. Okay. So let me get into this. I got it. So this is a little bit difficult for me here because I have to change my Twitter accounts because Robert Barnes has blocked me. Now, I know he blocks a lot of people, but he took me to task. I took him to task, actually. This had to do with Scott Horton. He was ragging on Scott Horton about not knowing anything he said. And so I made some comment to him, and it was probably about Israel or whatnot. But anyway, this is the thing about Whitney Webb. So I don't know the full details other than let's just play the clip. This is the best clip I can find on short notice, and it's going to be really bad to see. They're super tiny. But look, I've talked about this before. This is a great combo. These two guys, I don't understand how this happens, but they are gross beyond. And I know Jose said, "Hey, I will host this debate between Whitney Webb and Robert Barnes." Don't do it, Jose. Robert Barnes is as gross as can be. The stuff he said about Andrew, legal mindset, was disturbing. Okay, and as a high class attorney, as he quotes himself to be, what's most disturbing is the fact he wears a 3-piece suit, and the only reason he wears a vest. And I can't confirm this, but it's pretty well known in the fat community. You wear a vest simply to hide your tits, okay? And that's what he's doing here.
We haven't found a cure for cancer. We're not really making the great leaps we should. And why is that? And he's come up with his own understanding of that, of the failure of the university system. He's been one of the top critics of woke indoctrination.
I think he's talking about Peter Thiel.
And everything that's going wrong with the academy. He got to the point where he's like, don't even go to college. Don't waste your time. I'll fund you scholarships so you can create businesses outside of it. He came to believe that the two of the greatest threats to freedom and liberty in the future were the Islamist politicized Islam and the Chinese Communist Party. The fact that he has contracts with the government.
Okay, by the way, those two just make me laugh, right? That's such con Inc. And I mean con and con.
Does not make him part of the deep state. The reality is the government's going to have certain software. Would you rather Peter Thiel develop that software or Bill Gates develop that software? Right? This sort of common sense, like Whitney Webb doesn't have an answer. Does she want no software to exist? Does she want no government to? I mean, what's the answer? She can't even think through those things. And so her credit, like the other thing is J.D. Vance was created by Peter Thiel. That's complete garbage. So J.D. Vance had his own career trajectory. Same with his wife, who clerked for Judge Kavanaugh and Chief Justice Roberts. Went to Yale Law, but you watch Hillbilly Elegy and you'll understand who he is. Some people were trying to compare him to Barack Obama. Barack Obama's mother came from one of the wealthiest, most politically powerful families in the country. I mean, there's no connection at all between Barack Obama and J.D. Vance. Did J.D. Vance?
It's not true. I think they both did coke out of their ass. I think I just saw something with Hillbilly.
It says an old working class populist roots who, like a lot of other working class kids, believed that the 9/11 attack was legit and went and volunteered to serve in the U.S. Marine Corps. Then he realized they lied to us. And he's been on a path to try to figure out what's going wrong, what went wrong in his community, what went wrong in the war.
okay, I don't really, this is a thing because Whitney Webb did this deep dive, and I'm not going to, I looked at it. It's too deep for this show, right? We're a little bit less, at least time-wise. I don't have a lot of time for that today. So she wrote it, and it's basically about Peter Thiel and the guy, I guess his company really being connected with the CIA. Okay, a lot of backing there. And Robert Barnes has got to come out and defend. Now, Barnes is showing himself to be this tool of whomever. I mean, the Ricada thing blew me away, right? Where he comes out and he's just like, oh, yeah, you give your babies fentanyl, you give them coke. Did he say that? I don't know. I'm paraphrasing what he's saying. But he's really been awful to the point where I'm like, so let's see if we can follow some of the Whitney Webb. Let's see, where are we at here? Whitney Webb posts. Let's see if I'll bring this up. I think I'm on the account that I can actually, I have to do a different one, like I said, because that was blocked. So from this account, and this is one I really don't follow much. This is kind of one I did for cycling stuff. Peter Thiel's Palantir, a CIA front, is harvesting American genetic data from sewers and running the CDC's Center for Forecasting and Outbreak Analytics to help predict, quote, the next pandemic, unquote, before it happens. Wonder why Palantir, Thiel, and Lonsdale are donating so much to Trump. And then she gives, her sources there. And by the way, Palantir is also closely tied with Avril Haines, a key part of Event 201, the top intelligence official in the Biden administration, who would most likely like to keep that role under Harris. Both parties. Okay. Now, that's part of it. Shit, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to go back to, I had these all set out, and then let's see about this one. Nope, that's not going to be the one either. And Fat Barnes, maybe that's the one I titled that under Fat Barnes. Okay, so here's some of their stuff back and forth. So he said that, and then this guy goes, how do you know they are CIA front? What proof do you have? Robert Barnes said on Viva Fry podcast, you are a complete idiot with nothing to show for your statements of fact because you don't have any. And then he tags those two losers in there. She says, if true, I would like Barnes then to state clearly that he doesn't think Palantir has a relationship with the CIA then. I wrote a meticulously sourced article last week and many more on why Palantir is an obvious as a CIA front as they come. Demate me, bro. And that's when Jose chimed in there. He didn't say you were wrong about that. His point was basically that just because he has contracts with the government doesn't necessarily mean he is part of the deep state. That may be true, but the fact he still have contracts with government means he's not a threat to the deep state. And then she comes, this is with this other guy, Casey, right? She's going back and forth. So his argument is that Palantir is not actually part of the deep state. And then there's the clip. Was there any more of this? I don't know. She had some more stuff here. Barnes, that's the one I really wanted to look at here. So, because Barnes makes a comment. Did he delete it? Maybe he blocked me here. But nevertheless, I do have the comment that I made. So, I guess we'll have to go to that one. So, and then we can find out where Barnes is actually said his thing. So Barnes here goes, see, and he's okay because I'm on the one that's blocked. He basically said, oh, you're confusing a few things. And then I just said here, remember when you confused yourself as Sandman's attorney and they threatened legal action? So maybe we'll walk through that one more time real quick about the whole issue with him being the attorney for Sandman. I think it's important because if you don't remember these kind of things, this is the kind of shit that this guy comes. Is it blocked? Am I not going to be able to view it? Unlock article. Let's see if we can unlock the article. Oh, it's not going to let me in there. All right, I did a show about that. Basically, he was claiming to be Sandman's attorney. They came in and said they being Sandman and Sandman's attorney, basically get the fuck out, stop it. You're not our attorney. Get lost. Okay. And he did. Gordon said Barnes interviewed Whitman multiple times. He only hates her now because she criticizes Israel. Yeah, he's horrible on that. Barnes and ignoble. I'm just as suspicious of people having multi-hour deep dives on people 15 seconds into their 15 minutes of fame as I am about the people being investigated. Yeah, good point. Man, why is every internet lawyer dumber than Tyler? Actually, that's not true. And I've said this multiple times. stay in your lane type of thing, right? Here's Barnes' problem. He is very smart. Now, Viva Fry is not, okay? Don't get yourself confused. He's not a real attorney, at least not in the US. I think he did it in Canada, but what does that really mean? Robert Barnes is very intelligent, but I think he uses people, he uses himself, and he's on the wrong side of things a lot. And this is where my little bit of intelligence, at least I know where I'm at, right? Which is, as an example, what I do in my law, I just stay in my lane as far as I know family law, and that's pretty much what I practice. We talk about some other things here, but this is for fun. But I give the best, because I think it's better to be good at one thing than bad at a whole bunch. That happens. Robert Barnes covers the gamut, and he knows a ton. But his setting of expectations is just, he's Jim Cramer on for legal stuff. You can say whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't matter because you're not having skin in the game. Now, I know he's an attorney and he actually practices law. I don't know if he does that as an attorney to his people. I know that Alex Jones has gotten screwed over listening to him. I know that Rittenhouse people got rid of him. I know Sandman didn't want anything to do with him. So, go there if you want. He's Canadian. Of course, he's stupid. Thank you. Eddie Green gives the salute on that. Okay, let's we got to include the Rumble chat here because it doesn't come over like it does. I don't know why my Rumble chat is not included into the StreamYard, but Northside's over there. He says dudes who wear three-piece suits based out of Nevada are fat as fuck. Confirmed. A lot of people say that Teal and Vance met at the Power Exchange in San Francisco. Could be. I don't know. Yeah, this is a lot. Are you excited about JD Vance? I was not. I wasn't thrilled with him in the first place. I did like the movie, Hillbilly Elegy, but it's a movie. It's a sad thing about someone's life, and then he gets to bang an Indian in college. Good for him and solid. I mean, he's a good Republican. It did not entice. It did not. I thought Trump missed some points he could have taken there and picked someone different. The whole Kamala thing going too. I think Dave Smith. By the way, let's try this here. Okay, Dave Smith just released, and so I think as someone who reviews podcasts, you should check this out. He's now got a website, Part of the Problem. You can go there. You can join different tiers. You can get personal stuff. Here you go, $5 tier, $10 tier. I did the 10. I joined up for the 10. I don't get access to members-only Q&A stream each month. Okay, that's $25. I may do that. And I don't get to attend monthly Zoom meetings with Dave and Rob. But for $100, I can't do that. I can do that. Be a speaker at our monthly Q&A meetings. That's $250 a month. I'm not doing that yet, Dave. But I was a member of GAS, so I think I'm going to cancel GAS. I'm just going to be up there with Dave because I do enjoy. That's really the only reason I had Gas Digital. I go there. Dave actually did a good job breaking down the Kamala Harris thing, which you're starting to see. And you watch the news, what we just had up there earlier, right? How the news pumps things and they pump garbage. They've been pumping garbage for months on end, and years actually, which is that Joe Biden's fine. And now, he's got to get out of there. And so next thing they're pumping is that Kamala, she's exciting. Everyone's excited about Kamala Harris. And she's so smart, and she's the czar, but she's not the czar. But the border crossings are down, and that's what they're doing. They're pumping it up, and it's probably all bullshit. I'm seeing, and you get an initial bump with her coming in. My concern was you had this wonderful thing of, and I don't know if the GOP had much to do with this, but you had Biden on the ropes, literally roped because he's so demented and everyone could tell. And we've been talking about that for months and years. I was making these comments when he was running last time. I said, fuck you and the way you're treating grandpa. But fuck grandpa for still pushing forward with this. All of you, the whole Biden family is gross. We all know this, but it's confirmed by the fact that they haven't forced him out. And matter of fact, they were trying to keep him in. So, we've been talking about this for years. But now the dog caught the car, right? He's been pushed out because he's so bad. And you were probably going to win, you Trump, because Biden is this shell of a person, and he's got idiots behind him. I was talking about this with Top Lobster on the pre-show the other night, and I fucked it up because my audio only went to him and not projected out to everyone. But I'm like, these are all the grandkids and the kids, these power brokers that have been there for years, who are they're evil. Their parents were evil, but the difference was their parents were smart evil. If you think of yourself, I like you just said here, hey, Tyler's the smartest attorney. No. Matter of fact, if someone were to come up to me seriously and like, hey, you could be president, and then you've got to think about everything that's in, and I'm like, no, I'm not qualified. I run a small office. I don't run a big business. I'm not qualified to do that at all, right? And there's a lot of people out there with a lot more brains than me that would probably say the exact same thing. But then you look at who is running and who is in charge. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. Those are, I'm sorry, if you're a Democrat and you're a smart Democrat, you can't think that you are qualified, but you also can't think that they are more qualified than you. That is insane. So anyway, that's what we have. The point is, these are like their grandparents and their parents before them. They're all evil, but these are not smart evil. So it's different. Like, I think the assassination attempt is pretty much what it, there's going to be things we need to look at in much more detail. I just don't think that the people in charge are good at what they're trying to do here. So that's kind of my thing. Okay, Loads of Honey says, JD Vance will not make me vote for Trump. I don't think anyone that he had in mind for VP would have, though. Thomas Massey, let's be serious about that one. I don't know if that's the case. Anyway, go check out Dave's platform, subscribe to it. It's pretty good stuff. I've enjoyed it. Okay, Whitney Webb, we talked about her. Sandman, we talked about him, I know. Did I have other? Robert Barnes, we did that little thing. That one we're not going to worry about. Okay, let's talk about this ruling. Maybe I'll look at a real quick news article about it. This is and by the way, they released the body cam footage to start. Right? What did I say? Talked about Lee. The more that they disclose, the better. I don't know if you're watching some of these people out there. It's some of their coverage and the breakdown videos is not good. That's why I did the one on the trading, where I really think that they, I think that they weren't doing Lashif in Casino Royale, where he bet against the market. He shorted shares of Skynet or whatever it was, and then tried to bomb the plane to make money for the drug dealers or the whatever those guys were, the gangs out there in Africa. That's not I don't think what happened. Okay, I think it was a miss. And by the way, there's such a difference between option trading and stock trading. You would have seen this in the market. It wasn't in there. So go check that out. Alan says they don't respect you enough to lie well. That's part of it. That's part of it. Okay. Let's take a look at this news article, and we'll get to the actual. Okay. This, and all the articles had this. It had to have some dude trying to be a woman. Okay. It's so crazy. I know it's drag show stuff, right? Is it trannies? I don't know. Federal appeals court dismisses lawsuit over Tennessee's anti-drag show ban. A federal appeals court on Thursday dismissed a lawsuit challenging first-in-the-nation law designated to place strict limits on drag shows, reversing a lower court ruling that deemed the statute unconstitutional and blocked its enforcement in part of the state. The Sixth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the Memphis-based LGBTQAAI plus theater company that filed the complaint last year lacked the legal right to sue over the law. And I'm going to now take a look at the actual ruling. We're going to break down a little bit of it. There we go. There is a ruling. And let's go up to the top. So you'll get a few ideas about how things come about. And, the first thing, the courts, they kind of have a checklist about what they have to walk through. And by the way, do you have the right to even be bringing this lawsuit? Okay. Are you a person that's affected? Is there harm? Is there going to be harm? Jurisdiction, all these things have to be in place, and you can quash the you can quash the summons for improper service. You can do the demur to the complaints. All kinds of things you can do to kick these things out for all kinds of technical reasons. So was this kicked out for a technical reason? When I first read due to standing, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh shit. However, when you look closer at this ruling, it's standing, but it's standing for a very good reason. Okay, so now, does it say here what the opinion was? Because I know that's the majority came across this way. I don't know if it's like a 3-judge panel. Seiler, Nalbanian, and Matthias. Okay, so Mathis. So a 3-judge panel. Typical, you'd have that. Okay, let's take a look here. Circuit Judge, Tennessee's Adult Entertainment Act, AEA, makes it an offense to perform adult cabaret entertainment in public or in the potential presence of minors. Friends of George, we'll call him Fogg. What if it was Friends as George? Then that would be much better acronym. A theater organization that performs drag shows challenged the AEA as facially unconstitutional. The district court agreed, declaring the AEA unconstitutional in its entirety and permanently enjoining the district attorney general, Stephen Mulroy, from enforcing it anywhere within its jurisdiction, Shelby County, Tennessee. Mulroy now appeals, challenging the both Fogg's Article 3 standing and the merits of the injunction. Fogg did not meet its burden into show standing, so we reverse and remand with instructions to dismiss. Good stuff. Okay. Let's do a little history of this. In 2023, the Tennessee General Assembly passed the AEA, we'll just keep calling it that, which makes it an offense to, quote, to perform adult cabaret entertainment, A, on public property, or B, in a location where adult cabaret entertainment could be viewed by a person who is not an adult. Tennessee Code Section 7-51-1407C1 2023. Although the term adult cabaret entertainment is new to Tennessee law, the legislature defined that statutory phrase by reference to existing Tennessee law. This is part of the well done drafting of this law, which I wasn't quite sure that it was when I first heard that it was overturned. Adult cabaret entertainment is defined as adult-oriented performances that are harmful to minors, as that term is deemed under Section 39-17-901, and that feature topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male or female impersonators, or similar entertainers. Tennessee Code, and we already said that one. By its explicit reference to 39-17-901, the text incorporates the following definition as harmful to minors. So, I mean, they were pretty explicit here. There you go. Friends against George. There. Fogg. I say that with a hard accent. Fogg. Fag. That the quality of the description or representation, whatever form of nudity. Wait, did we miss the first part of this? Following harmful to minors, that quality of any description of or representation in whatever form of nudity, sexual excitement, sexual conduct, excess violence, or sadomasochistic abuse when the matter or performance. A, would be found on an average person applying contemporary community standards to appeal predominantly to the prurient, shameful, or morbid interests of minors. B, is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable for minors. And C, taken as whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific values for minors. Tennessee Code. So the new law prevents children from viewing adult performances. I'm just going to say right up front, this is a somewhat of a prediction of what's to come here. The drag shows, these kind of instances. What is the left or the types that really want to push this to kids? What are they always saying? Hey, it's not for deviant circumstances. It's for artistic. It's for art. It's for literary. It's learning. It's not at all sexual, people. Okay. Well, this takes that. This could come back to bite you here. Let's keep going though. Where was that here? No, we don't want that one. Do we don't want that one? Let's try that one. I think that's where we're at. This definition has existed in Tennessee code for decades. And the Supreme Court of Tennessee has interpreted it to refer, quote, only to those materials which lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for a reasonable 17-year-old minor. Davis Kidd booksellers, so it's a Davis Kidd case, which you're going to be talking about here. Interpreting identical language from Tennessee code. Additionally, the second component to adult cabaret entertainment copies verbatim from a longstanding definition of adult cabaret. In parentheses, adult cabaret means a cabaret which features topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male and female impersonators, or similar entertainers. Friends of George Fogg is an organization that aims to, quote, provide a space outside of bars and clubs where people can enjoy drag shows, because that's what you really want. In Friends of George's Inc. v. Mulroy, that's the case that they're appealing. It tries to, quote, stick around the PG-13 area in writing, unquote, rather than to get, quote, too risque. And Fogg describes its drag shows as an art form. An art form it likened to William Shakespeare plays and ancient Greek theatrical productions, even though Fogg has never performed a script play. Now, look, by the way, we're not coming in here. Fogg is not coming in here saying, you're shutting us down. You've shut our business down. Therefore, this is why we're appealing. They're just saying this law is unconstitutional, okay? So them as having standing, they are also saying, hey, our shows stick to PG-13. We're not too risque. We're William Shakespeare plays. We're ancient Greek theatrical productions, okay? Even though Fogg has never performed a, quote, script play or any of its pre-scripted productions on public property, which is also part of the code, remember, it sells tickets to its shows without distinguishing between adults and minors. Fogg, damn, that's acronym is so close to being perfect, says that although its shows do not contain sexual acts, they contain descriptions, representations of sexual conduct that law enforcement might think violates the AEA. There you go. They might think it. So on March 27, 2023, Fogg sought an injunction to prohibit enforcement of the AEA, arguing that the statute violates its First Amendment rights. The district court granted Fogg a temporary restraining order on March 31, the day before the AEA was scheduled to take effect, declining to apply Davis Kidd's narrowing construction. We just mentioned that case up there above about construction because it would rewrite the AEA. The district court held that 1, Fogg had standing, 2, AEA violates the First Amendment and is unconstitutionally vague, permanently enjoining Mulroy from enforcing the statute anywhere within its jurisdiction, Shelby County. Friends of George, Okay, I didn't think the law was vague. It seemed pretty explicit up there. However, let's talk about that. Mulroy now appeals, arguing that 1, Fogg lacks Article 3 standing and the AEA is constitutional, and 3, even if the AEA were unconstitutional, the district court's injunction was overbroad. Okay. Part 2, by the way, drink up if you can. I'm doing this in honor of the drag show and Andy, which is I'm drinking a Bravas Brewing West Coast IPA, non-alcoholic craft beer. Don't ask me why. I'm really trying to work on my fitness. I've been riding more, going to the gym, trying to cut down on the alcohol. There's just one thing you can do, and I wanted something to drink. So let's fuck you all. Okay. We review standing and legal conclusions de novo. Sullivan v. Benningfield, Atkins v. Parker. To establish Article 3 standing, a plaintiff must show 1, an injury in fact. Okay, you actually been injured. 2, fairly traceable to the challenged conduct of the defendant. So the defendant caused the harm, you actually were harmed. And 3, that it is likely to be redressed by the requested relief, that the relief is going to solve this. So Fogg is saying, hey, we've been injured, we can't put on a show. Due to the fact that this law is now in place, and the only way we can do it is to say that this law is not constitutional. Typically, an injury in this context requires that the government enforce the allegedly unconstitutional law against a challenging party before it has standing to sue. But we have recognized in some, so is the law even in effect? And if not, then you don't have standing. However, in some circumstances, standing can derive from an imminent rather than an actual injury. but only when the threatened injury is real, immediate, and direct. That's under Crawford v. Department of Treasury. Okay. Thus, we have permitted pre-enforcement review, but only when the plaintiff, 1, alleges an intention to engage in a course of conduct arguably affected with a constitutional interest, 2, that the challenge statute prescribes Susan B. Anthony List v. Dryhouse, quoting Babbitt and United Farm Workers National Union, and 3, plaintiff's intention generates a certainly impending threat of prosecution. Okay. And they'll talk about that. You don't need to know all those cases. I'm not doing a quiz. To determine whether Fogg intends to engage in a course of conduct that the AEA arguably prescribes, the Susan B. Anthony List case, we must first figure out what the AEA prescribes, discussing a broad sweep of Ohio law at issue. Once, I don't know why they're talking about that one. Once we account for the history and the relevant provisions, as well as the relevant case law, that task is relatively straightforward. The AEA makes it an offense to perform, quote, adult cabaret entertainment on public property or anywhere it can be viewed by a minor. This targets adult-oriented performances that are harmful to minors. That features topless dancers, go-go, and once again, they reiterate this, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male and female impersonators, or similar entertainers, and harmful to minors, expressly incorporates a long-standing definition under Tennessee law, which focuses on whether a performance has serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific values for minors. As we noted above, the Supreme Court of Tennessee has interpreted harmful to minors before limiting it only to those materials which lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for a reasonable 17-year-old minor. That's the Davis Kidd case. The district court, however, declined to apply the Davis Kidd interpretation of harmful to minors to the AEA, calling it an atextual construction and reading the standard to require value for children as young as 4 or 5. Friends of George. This was an error. It is not atextual to apply a state court's interpretation of state law. It's required. Rhodes v. Brigano. This court is bound by the state's interpretation of criminal law. Under Mulry v. Wilbur, a U.S. Supreme Court case, noting the Supreme Court, quote, repeatedly has held that state courts are the ultimate expositors of state law and that the federal courts are bound by their constructions except in extreme circumstances, citing Murdoch v. City of Memphis, Winters v. New York. Okay, that's pretty important. And by the way, I wish they would always adhere to that kind of stuff. Moreover, the AEA is harmful to minors standard as construed by the Tennessee Supreme Court, incorporates the Supreme Court's 3-part obscenity test from Miller v. California and modifies it to apply to minors. Compare that with another case. And the Supreme Court has rejected neither feature. First, it has already interpreted vagueness challenges against Miller's obscenity test as, quote, nothing less than an invitation to overturn Miller, an invitation it rejected, Fort Wayne Books. Second, it has also blessed state adoptions of obscenity test to apply to minors. In Ginsburg v. New York, the Supreme Court held a harmful to minors standard that modified the then existing obscenity test to apply to any person under the age of 17. Okay, so there's precedent basically for saying something's harmful to minors and that it's not unconstitutional. Yet the AEA is even more limited to the New York law upheld in Ginsburg. There, the standard was, quote, any person under the age of 17. But here, binding state precedent has made clear that the standard specifically considered value for a reasonable 17-year-old. Davis Kidd, once again, that they should be using that standard. And the AEA's harmful to minors standard is also consistent with our sister circuits. And then they name a bunch of cases. In short, the AEA takes 1, adult-oriented performances lacking serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for a reasonable 17-year-old. That 2, features topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male and female impersonators, or similar entertainers. And 3, prohibits them both in public and where minors may view. Okay, so we have these standards for your First Amendment constitutional rights, but there are, as we know, there's limits onto those. We don't always want that. Now, once again, if you're under the auspice of not having incorporation here, the First Amendment doesn't really matter because it's only what the states do, but Tennessee is going to have a likewise similar standard for Bill of Rights and the probably First Amendment in their own state constitution. So it doesn't really fucking matter. We don't need the U.S. Constitution. We only need the Tennessee Constitution for this. But Either way, we're getting through this. So the burden of the Fogg is to allege its intention to arguably meet all three elements. Okay, it has to have those. Failure to on any one shows that Fogg's intended performance is not prescribed by the statute. Fogg doesn't perform in public, but it does sell tickets without distinguishing between adults and minors. So the minors can view Fogg's show. And as a drag-centric theater group, its performances certainly include male and female personators or similar entertainers. So the crux of the case is whether Fogg has met its burden to demonstrate that its shows are arguably adult-oriented performances that lack serious value for a 17-year-old. To answer this, we need only look at how Fogg describes its performances. And here's the crux of it, people. Here's where they get into trouble, which is, hey, all this degenerate stuff is actually art. Okay, an art form. One likened to Shakespeare, ancient Greek theater. Fogg has not alleged that its performances lack serious value for a 17-year-old. In fact, it insists the exact opposite. Its own witness, a member of Fogg's board, conceded that its shows, quote, are definitely appropriate for a 15-year-old and would, quote, absolutely have artistic value for a 17-year-old. Now, do we take that artist at face value? Perhaps, but that's the problem that Fogg had here, was going down the route. According to the witness, Fogg tries to stick around the PG-13 area rather than get too risque. By its own testimony, Fogg has failed to show any intention to even arguably violate the AEA. Okay, there you go. Well, you have to have an injury. You have to have, I'm going to be doing this, and then there's, you need regress. What's more, if we accept the district court's interpretation of harmful to minors, Fogg has been breaking obscenity law for years. Before the AEA, it was already a crime to admit minors to view sexually explicit shows that are harmful to minors under the same statutory standard. Yet, despite selling tickets without distinguishing between adults and minors, neither Fogg nor its performers have ever been charged without violating obscenity laws or even threatened with prosecution. Fogg nonetheless claims that its productions might be seen as violating the AEA by law enforcement and thus could be proscribed. And the pre-enforcement stage, Fogg need not prove conclusively that its intended course of conduct violates the AEA, but only that it is arguably prescribed by statute. Also, as essentially what Fogg is asking here, keeping in mind the district court's rejection of Davis Kid Air. And finally, to support his claim, Fogg presented videos showing sketches from past performances at a trial that it believes could be construed as containing adult content. The videos specifically show Fogg performers talking about masturbation, simulating sex acts behind a curtain, and engaging in phallic humor. Fogg claims that these clips prove that its shows may violate the AEA. The district court credited the argument, saying that, quote, a law enforcement officer could view Fogg's productions and reasonably think that they violate the AEA, Friends of George. But Fogg only presented individual skits and scenes abstracted from the context of an entire show. As Fogg admitted in oral argument, it puts on sketch shows performing roughly 10 skits in each, and the artistic merit of each work does not depend on the presence of a single explicit scene because, quote, the First Amendment requires that redeeming value be judged by considering the work as a whole. Ashcroft v. Speech, citing Memoirs of Massachusetts, plurality opinion in Miller, a state offense must also be limited to works which, taken as a whole, appeal to the prurient interest in sex, which portrays sexual conduct in a patently offensive way, in which, taken as a whole, do not have serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Therefore, in the extent of the district court used Fogg's videos as independent evidence showing a lack of artistic value for minors was also error, and the Fogg bears a burden to submit enough evidence as to the judge to show the value of its show as a whole. Cherry-picked scenes and skits do not remedy Fogg's failure to allege any intention to exhibit adult cabaret entertainment performances lacking value, even reasonable 17-year-olds to an audience. For a number of reasons, Fogg cannot show a pre-enforcement injury without alleging intention of arguably violating the AEA. It has not done so. Fogg lacks standing. Now, I'm not going to necessarily, I mean, we're almost to the end here, but there's some of this in the middle. Do we want to? I don't know. I'll read the context here, and then we'll see what there's. Interesting. Now show me his internet browsing history, right? But But even Fogg alleged an intention to engage in a course of conduct arguably prescribed by the AEA. It would also need to show that this alleged intention to breach the AEA is arguably affected with a constitutional interest. For example, a plaintiff challenging a law banning protest must show a constitutional interest in protesting, or a newspaper challenging a censorship law must show a constitutional interest in freely publishing. But the law in this area is clear. There is no constitutional interest in exhibiting indecent material to minors. There you go. I know that might sound controversial, but they're saying you don't have a right to do that. The Supreme Court's First Amendment jurisprudence has acknowledged limitations on the otherwise absolute interest of the speaker in reaching an unlimited audience, where the speech is sexually explicit and the audience may include children. The protections of the First Amendment have always adapted to the audience intended for the speech. Specifically, we have recognized certain speech, while fully protected when directed to adults, may be restricted when directed towards minors. States may shield minors from the influence of sexual expression that is not obscene by adult standards, so the government may punish adults who provide unsuitable materials to children, so long as non-obscene speech is not silenced completely in an attempt to shield children from it. As discussed above, when the state law adopts the Miller test to minors, the Supreme Court has no quibble. In fact, the Supreme Court has embraced variations of the Miller test that are less specific in the AEA's formulation. Compare Ginsburg upholding a statute that modified the Miller. Now, the Miller test is the famous one that they've talked about here. Supreme Court about limitations on free speech. Miller test to apply to any person under the age of 17, with Davis Kidd interrupting the harmful to minors standard incorporated the AEA to specifically consider the value for a reasonable 17-year-old. Only constitutionally protected expressions implicated by the AEA are adult-oriented performance that can constitutionally be restricted minors, but not from adults. A narrow slice of speech. And the statute doesn't even ban these performances, merely restricting them to adult-only zones. In sum, if Fogg's shows, taken as a whole, are an art form with artistic value for a reasonable 17-year-old, then the AEA is no restriction. But if Fogg deals in adult content lacking value for the reasonable 17-year-old, then Fogg has no constitutional interest in violating the AEA by exhibiting his performances to minors. Susan B. Anthony List case, any intention Fogg might have to violate the AEA is not arguably affected with a constitutional interest, so Fogg lacks pre-enforcement standing because it has shown no injury. There we go. Finally, if we assume for the sake of argument that Fogg successfully alleged an intention to engage in course of conduct arguably affected with a constitutional interest that is also arguably prescribed by the AEA, mere allegations of a subjective chill on protected speech are insufficient to establish an injury in fact or for pre-enforcement standing purposes. Fogg also may show a certainly impending threat of prosecution. We judge threats of prosecution using a holistic test consisting of the four main McKay factors. Do you guys want to read those? Yeah, let's do it. We're almost done. A history of past enforcement against the plaintiffs or others, enforcement warning letters sent to the plaintiffs regarding their specific conduct, an attribute of the challenge statute that makes enforcement easier and more likely, such as a provision allowing any member of the public to initiate an enforcement action, and 4, the defendant's refuses to disavow enforcement of the challenge statute against a particular plaintiff. Each factor cuts against Fogg's claim of standing. Fogg only contends that the third or fourth factors weigh in its favor. This is probably because there is no history of past enforcement of the AEA, and Fogg has received no warning letters. As for the third factor, Fogg claims through the AEA, Tennessee's legislature has emboldened prosecutors in a way they were not before. But the legislature may, quote, may have emboldened prosecutors by both, quote, making the prescription so much clearer, quote, and by alternating the enforcement mechanism, which is not clear. Beforehand, the prosecutors had even realized they could collaterally enforce the prohibition at issue. Here, the AEA does not clarify the harmful to minors standard. It is unchanged. And the authority, that's interesting, right? There's already a harmful to minors standard in place, and it just adopted it. The authority and the prosecutors to enforce the law was always clear. The AEA does not allow any member of the public to initiate an enforcement action. Instead, a district attorney general has the sole duty, authority, and discretion to prosecute criminal matters in the state of Tennessee. Fogg also argues the AEA is easier to enforce because it is a strict liability statute with felony penalties. Basically, strict liability doesn't matter about your intent. The fact that you broke the law is that. And by the way, that's what we're talking about with Trump documents, and you saw the thing with Destiny and Clinton. My problem with that is Hillary Clinton had documents on her server. It's more a strict liability. It doesn't matter if you intended to or not. Negligence doesn't matter. Negligence, in fact, you look at that, it still doesn't matter that you didn't mean to. It's the fact that it was there is the problem. Okay, so that's strict liability. That's what they're talking about. But the Supreme Court of Tennessee already made clear that in the context of criminal statutes regarding regulating obscenity, the state must establish that the defendant had knowledge of the contents and the character of the exhibits at issue. So the AEA explicitly incorporates this traditional state of mind required for all Tennessee obscenity offenses. For all intents and purposes, the AEA is a standard criminal law with no attributes making enforcement easier or more likely. Finally, Fogg argues that Mulroy has refused to disavow enforcement because he has unequivocally stated that he intends to enforce all state of Tennessee laws that fall within his prosecutorial jurisdiction, including the AEA. Pretrial, okay. But the disavowal factor focuses on a particular plaintiff. Okay. And Mulroy's stated intention to enforce Tennessee law in the abstract did not suggest that he would enforce rule against anything like specific speech. Under the McKay factors, Fogg has not shown a certainly impending threat of prosecution. A quick review of the Supreme Court cases yields the same result. I don't want to go through those. Let's get down here to the end. Oh, we're at the end here. So let's just finish that. The district court, however, ignored McKay completely. And in spite of the Supreme Court precedent, found a certainly impending threat because it claimed that a reasonable officer could arrest Fogg's performers under the erroneous assumption that the AEA's harmful to minors standard considers a 5 or 8 year old, friends of George. But even as we assume for the sake of argument that this supposed threat of false arrest could then amount to a threat of false prosecution, fear, wrongful prosecution, and the conviction under the AEA is inadequate to generate a case or controversy the federal courts can hear. Fogg faces no certainly impending threat of prosecution. Fogg has shown no pre-enforcement injury and thus lacks standing. For the reasons here, we reverse and remand with instructions. So the benefit of this ruling, when I first thought it was just about standing, like, hey, maybe they weren't injured. Yes, they weren't injured at all, but it did break down here how this ruling, how this standard and the harmful to minor standard had been incorporated by the law. So I think this is going to withstand more scrutiny as it comes forward, and it doesn't look like it's more of a, I don't know, maybe a show pony than not. Yeah, let's go LPRs for Charles and Minder. No, this is not live. So there we go. Not live at all. Okay, so it's almost time for me to go out, go hang out with my wife, drink real beer in this tent. Hope you guys have a good weekend. You know, it's been so bad, climate change, right? They're not going down there, but it's been really hot here in California, and we are finally coming to a point where we're going to get it's been 109, 112, 105. It's just been unbearable for multiple weeks. We usually don't have that in Northern California. And this weekend, we're going to be in the 80s. It's a little bit of a cold snap coming in. So I'm somewhat excited about that. So look, once again, I'm going to encourage you guys, go online to my catalog there. By the way, we need more people. We're like 45 people away from getting 1,000. And then my community strike drops off, I think, at the 8th of August. And then we can monetize. Not that we want to. I really care, but hey, it's just one more little hurdle. Let's get us to 1,000. How about we just get us to 1,000? So show us out there, Tyler. Why is climate change a hoax? I don't know that well, one, the name. You've just described every possibility, right? You don't talk about vague and laws out there. Climate change. I mean, you now get to put into every single bucket any possible difference. You know, it's so funny because, you know, we're here with some relatives the other day and they're talking about, it's never been this hot. And I go, okay, come on now. I'm younger than some of you, but good God. I mean, as someone who's ridden my bike since I was, you know, outside ton, since I was like, you know, 15, you tend to remember a lot of the heat. Okay. And it's been hot before. Okay. Now, maybe there's other categories and things that are happening. Maybe it's more dramatic, but this is the problem. It's like a bad winter happens. Now it's climate. Remember, it used to be global warming. Then it was global cooling. Well, now you just say climate change and everything's involved. And it is difficult that you think as a human, I'm a religious one, that you think you're so involved that you are going to ruin God's earth. Like you spill oil up in Alaska, somehow it cleans itself, you know, things happen. I don't know. Let's keep moving on. I don't know about a hoax, but the way that the people like the Greta Thunberg and those two, they are trying to perform a hoax on you. So you may have valid things, but you know, the people that take it seriously, trying to remember the guys, it was like some Swedish guy. He was all into the climate change stuff, but he said what you want to do with the economics that's being pushed is actually worse. So let's take that into account. Okay. Scam. That's the word. You know, climate change is a scam because the solution is always wealth. Yes. There you go. Urbanization accounts for much of the warming. Yeah, could be. I don't know. I haven't dug into that. I just know that when the solution is communism, count me somewhat skeptical on that one. All right. Yay, 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 ye says, here we go. All right, everybody. Libertarian, no, LPR. We're going here. I hope you appreciated this show because it was pretty much what you wanted. Let me know what you guys think. Also send me stuff if you want me to review anything else. I got motivated to do Dave Smith, Part of the Problem, breaking it down. I'm going to do a thing like I did with Tom Woods. Look for that. I say that all the time. I mean it this time. I mean it. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye, guys.
But she's back.
And now.
Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. And I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Should I vote for Dick Cheney on the Libertarian Party? Do I have an obligation to vote for Dick Cheney?
I would say so.
Yes.
Did it work for those people?
No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
That one dude was like, not a podcast, I can't find it anywhere, and they don't have video.
Oh, yeah, Peter Janke, yeah.
Yeah, I blocked him.
I'll do it. If he unblocks me,
He'll buy your shirt if you unblock him, Bert.
He's a wigger.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a 49-year-old wigger.
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.